So, you're thinking about buying a home in 2026. You're probably asking one massive question. What's it really going to cost me? Not just the price on the listing, but the true all-in financial picture. Well, let's dive in, because the answer, it might just surprise you.
And this, right here, is the heart of the issue. A staggering 81% of homeowners end up paying way more than they planned for. And look, this isn't because people are bad at math. It's because there's this whole universe of hidden costs that often gets completely overlooked. Our whole goal here is to make sure you're not one of them.
All right, here's the game plan. First, we'll get a quick snapshot of the 2026 market. Then, we are going to uncover all those costs that hide beyond the mortgage payment. We'll look at the new rules of the game, crunch the numbers on renting versus buying, and then we'll wrap it all up with a clear, actionable path to get you started.
First up, let's get the lay of the land. Because to really get a handle on the costs, you first have to understand the market you're stepping into. And trust me, it is a completely different world than it was just a few years ago.
Wow, okay, this table really tells a story, doesn't it? We've moved from that absolutely red-hot, double-digit price jump frenzy of the early 2020s into a much, much cooler, more stable environment. Yeah, prices are still ticking up, but that explosive growth has definitely leveled off.
Mortgage rates are, of course, a huge piece of this puzzle. While they're down from their recent peaks, they're still hovering around 6.3%, and that is still more than double what we saw during the pandemic boom. Honestly, this one number is the single biggest factor that's going to shape your monthly payment as a new buyer.
And this right here, this 1 to 2% forecast for price growth, that is the new market reality. So what does that mean for you? It means those crazy, intense bidding wars and people waiving inspections. Yeah, those days are pretty much behind us. It's a more balanced market now, which gives you, the buyer, a little more breathing room, a little more leverage.
Okay, last big number to know. The government has upped what's called the conforming loan limit to over $832 grand. What that means in plain English is that it's just gotten easier to get a standard, conventional mortgage for a higher-priced home without having to jump through all the extra hoops for a special jumbo loan.
All right, so this brings us to the real core of that 81% problem we talked about at the start. Everyone, and I mean everyone, focuses on the mortgage payment. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real story, the real cost, is what's hiding right below the surface.
I mean, seriously, just look at that number. On average, homeowners are spending an extra $21,400 a year. Let's break that down. That's almost $1,800 a month on expenses that are not part of their mortgage. This is the figure that just completely blindsides so many people.
So that monthly housing payment you think you've calculated, well, the actual mortgage part, the principal and interest, it might only be about 60% of your total monthly bill. That other 40% is a whole mix of property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and utilities that are every bit as mandatory as the mortgage itself.
And this really gets to the most important mindset shift you have to make. You can't just budget for P&I. You have to budget for PITI plus MU and maybe HOA. Yeah, it's a mouthful. That's principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and maybe homeowner association fees. That whole long list on the right, that is your new financial reality.
So let's run through this checklist real quick. Property taxes, they are not fixed. They can and do go up. Homeowners insurance? Whoa, this has become a massive expense, with premiums jumping 70% since 2021. If you put down less than 20%, you'll be paying private mortgage insurance, or PMI. A lot of communities have HOA fees. Utilities are averaging around $430 a month. And then, the big one, maintenance. The rule of thumb is to budget 1 to 2% of your home's value every single year just for repairs and upkeep.
Okay, so now that we're properly aware of all the costs, let's talk about the playbook. There have been some really significant changes to the tax code recently that directly impact a homeowner's bottom line. And knowing these rules is absolutely crucial for your financial planning.
First up is something you're going to hear about called the SALT deduction. In simple terms, it lets you deduct the state and local taxes you pay. And yes, that includes your property taxes from your federal taxable income. It's a key tax benefit for homeowners.
And here is the huge news. The cap on that deduction, which was stuck at $10,000 for years, has been quadrupled to $40,000 for most homeowners. I mean, if you live in a high-tax state, this is a total game changer that could lead to some really significant federal tax savings. All right, a few other quick but important changes to know. Starting in 2026, you can now deduct that private mortgage insurance, your PMI, just like you do mortgage interest. The existing deduction for interest on mortgages up to $750K has been made permanent, but, and this is a big heads up, those popular tax credits for things like solar panels and energy-efficient windows, they are set to expire after 2025.
Okay, so this all leads us to that classic debate, right? Is it better to rent or to buy? With all these costs and new tax rules in mind, let's look at a really clear, numbers-based way to think about this decision.
At a high level, the trade-offs are pretty clear. Renting gives you flexibility and you're free from those maintenance worries. Buying, on the other hand, gives you the chance to build real wealth through equity, you get stable payments with a fixed-rate mortgage, and you get tax benefits. The real question isn't which one is better, it's which set of pros and cons fits your life, right here, right now.
And that brings us to the crucial break-even point. It's basically the amount of time you need to own a home for the financial benefits to finally outweigh all those high upfront costs of buying in the first place. In today's market, that magic number is typically somewhere between 3 and 7 years.
Let's make this concrete. Look at this example for a median-priced home. The monthly costs look pretty close, right? In fact, renting looks slightly cheaper. But, and this is the key difference, the buyer also built about $4,500 in equity. So when you subtract that gain from their costs, their net financial position after just 1 year is actually better than the renters. This is exactly why time is a homeowner's absolute best friend.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. The market, the hidden costs, the tax rules, the whole rent versus buy debate. So let's pull it all together into a super simple, actionable checklist to put you on the right path.
Here are 4 simple steps. First, calculate your total budget. Not just the mortgage, I'm talking everything. Second, build an emergency fund that can cover 3 to 6 months of those total housing expenses. Third, do your homework on local costs. Property taxes in one town can be double what they are in the one next door. And finally, get pre-approved for a loan to see what a bank thinks you can borrow, but then you look at your total budget to decide what you can truly, comfortably afford.
And that really brings us to the final, most important question. Homeownership is a powerful tool for building wealth, but only when you go in with your eyes wide open. So, knowing the real cost, the full, unvarnished financial picture, how do you want to shape your future? The answer is different for everyone, and now you're equipped to find yours.